Story 1. They say you never really know when someone's been watching you. I learned that the hard way, on what I thought was just another late study night. It was a Thursday, 12:07 a.m. to be exact, when I finally gave up trying to make instant noodles. My stomach was growling, my paper was half written, and the rain outside made the whole apartment feel like a damp cave. So I ordered pizza, a large cheese, extra sauce, comfort food. The guy on the phone said it would take about 30 minutes. I put my headphones back on and started typing. By the time my phone buzzed, I hadn't even noticed how much time had passed. Unknown number calling. I frowned. Normally, the delivery number shows up on screen. I picked up anyway. "Hi, I'm at your door," the voice said. Male. Calm. Almost soft. Coming. I hurried into the hallway, thinking maybe he didn't want to stand in the rain. The door chain rattled as I slid it open. There was no one. Just the wind and the sound of rain hitting the broken streetlight outside. But right at my feet, neatly placed on the doormat, was a steaming pizza box. The brand logo was clear, the cardboard hot in the rising mist. I stepped out half a pace, craning my neck down both ends of the hall. Nothing. The elevator light wasn't on. The stairs were silent. It was strange, but I figured maybe he dropped it off to save time. I mumbled to myself something about contactless delivery and carried it inside. That's when I saw it. The pizza box wasn't taped shut. The lid wobbled slightly in my hands as I set it on the table, and instead of that warm smell of cheese and bread, it smelled faintly like my own perfume. I lifted the lid. No pizza. My breath caught in my throat. Sitting inside on the waxy pizza paper were my house keys, the exact keychain, the exact scratches on the metal. I hadn't even noticed they were missing from my desk where I normally left them. Next to the keys was a Polaroid photo. In the picture, my bedroom window glowed with the faint blue light of my laptop. And inside the frame, sitting exactly as I had been just half an hour ago, was me. Hair a mess, wearing the oversized hoodie I practically lived in. The angle hit me hard. The photo had been taken from outside my building. My bedroom was on the 3rd floor. I dropped the box, stumbling back so hard my chair almost toppled. My skin prickled all over. My first thought was, someone's messing with me, a prank. But then I realized my window had been open earlier to let out the smell from my noodles. The pizza box was still steaming slightly, but there was no food inside. My hands refused to stop shaking. I picked up the phone and called the pizza place. Did someone just deliver to me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The guy on the other end sounded confused. "Ordered a 34 Berkeley Avenue, large cheese." "Yes," I breathed. "Ma'am, we haven't taken any orders from you tonight. We don't deliver this late anymore." Kitchen closes at 11. A cold weight dropped into my stomach. I locked every window, bolted the door, and grabbed a kitchen knife. I kept telling myself, it's fine, maybe someone's pulling an elaborate prank. But the thing about fear is, it doesn't care about logic. As I stood in the middle of my small living room, I heard it. A faint creak from inside my apartment. Not the hallway. Inside. It came again, heavier this time, from the bedroom. I moved slowly, knife in hand, my breaths shallow. The bedroom door was only half open now. I knew I'd left it wide open earlier. Pushing it with my foot, I expected to see nothing. An empty room. Overthinking, right? Instead, the curtains on my window were swaying from the inside. And there, perfectly wedged on the floorboards, was another pizza box. This one wasn't steaming. The cardboard was damp, rain-speckled. My name was written across the top in thick black marker. I swear I almost dropped the knife opening it, and I wish I had never looked inside. Another Polaroid. This time, it was taken from inside my apartment. I was in the kitchen just seconds ago, holding the knife. The shot captured my curved back, and in the far corner of the photo, blurred but visible, was a tall, shadowy figure standing behind me. I didn't think, I just ran. I didn't grab my bag, my phone, anything. I ripped open the door and bolted down 3 flights until I was on the street. I didn't care that the rain soaked me until my hoodie clung to my skin. I went to the 24-hour gas station at the corner and called the police. They searched my apartment later that night, but didn't find anyone, just the 2 pizza boxes and my missing keys. That was 2 weeks ago. The locks have been changed. I keep my curtains shut. I moved my desk away from the window. I promised myself I'd stop thinking about it. But last night, I woke up to a tapping sound on my window pane. And when I got up this morning, on the outside of the glass, stuck with clear tape, was a fresh Polaroid of me sleeping. Story 2. Not just mistake wrong, but the kind of wrong your brain warns you about before you can explain why. That's exactly what I felt the night Eddie disappeared. It was a Saturday, the kind of night where rain made the whole city smell like damp concrete. 4 of us were crammed in our apartment. Me, Eddie, Tara, and Vic. We'd been playing cards, music low, just killing time. Around 10:30 p.m., Eddie got up and said, "I'm starving, let's order pizza." Tara called our usual place, one we've ordered from 100 times, large pepperoni, 1 veggie on the side. We sat back, waiting, laughing, talking, nothing unusual. About 40 minutes later, my phone rang. Not the landlady, not my mom, an unknown number. I picked up. A male voice, steady and casual, said, "I think your door is broken. I'm inside already." For a split second, I didn't process it. Then I froze. "Who is this?" I asked. "Pizza delivery," he said. "Large pepperoni, 1 veggie." I looked across the table. Everyone heard him. The whole room went quiet. Eddie stood up instantly. "I'll go check," he muttered. As soon as he rounded the corner toward the front door, I heard it. The old hinges squealing. Not just unlocked. Wide open. We followed him, 3 steps behind. The hallway light flickered, the way it always does. But here's the thing. Eddie wasn't there. Instead, the pizza boxes were sitting neatly on the coffee table in the living room. The smell of hot cheese filled the air. Steam curled upward like nothing was wrong. But Eddie was gone. No sound. No footsteps on the floor above. Nothing. Tara's voice wavered. "Eddie, quit screwing around." No answer. Then Vic noticed it. On top of the pepperoni box was a folded note. The handwriting was jagged, cramped, like it had been written in a hurry. It said, "You tipped me enough the first time." We all looked at each other in confusion. First time? The only pizza guy we knew was the one who barely spoke and always looked half asleep. This wasn't his voice, and none of us had seen the man who supposedly brought the food in. I picked up my phone again and called the pizza shop. The guy who answered sounded half bored, half tired. I asked him who they sent to our address. He hesitated. "We didn't get any order from you tonight." We checked the boxes again. This wasn't even from their chain. The branding was a faded red logo I'd never seen before. The cardboard felt damp, not from rain, more like it had been in someone's hands for too long. Vic grabbed a slice anyway. My brain screamed at him not to. But it wasn't hot, despite the steam we'd seen earlier. The cheese was rubbery, cold. When Tara leaned closer, she whispered, "There's something inside." She peeled the slices back carefully. Under the top layer of cheese, sealed into the crust, was a folded photograph. It was Eddie, standing in our hallway. The picture was taken from outside the apartment door, like someone was waiting for him to open it. Panic set in. We tore through the apartment calling his name. Kitchen, bathroom, bedrooms, nothing. The only sound was the rain hitting the glass. Finally, I ran into the hallway outside. My voice echoed down the stairwell. "Eddie!" No response. No neighbors opening doors to check. Nothing. We called 911. The cops came, took statements, checked the building's old security camera. And here's the part that made the officer's voice go tight. In the footage, Eddie answers the delivery guy, a man in a cap holding pizza boxes. They talk for a second, then Eddie steps aside to let him in. 2 minutes later, the man walks out alone, still holding the boxes. "But the pizza was here when we came in," Tara whispered. The cop just stared at her. "Ma'am, the video shows no one entering after that man left. Not you, not your friends, and the boxes were in his hands the whole time. After they left, we realized something. The note said, 'You tipped me enough the first time.' At first, we thought it was a mistake, but what if it wasn't? What if this wasn't his first visit? What if we just didn't notice the other times? I couldn't sleep that night. Every sound in the apartment made me tense up. Pipes groaning, wind whistling. At around 3 a.m., I went to the kitchen for water. That's when I noticed it. A third pizza box, sitting by the door. I hadn't heard anyone knock. No footsteps, no hinge squeak. My heart was pounding, but I opened it. Inside was another photograph, this one taken now, from the corner of the kitchen. Me, standing exactly where I was, glass of water in my hand. And at the very edge of the frame, half hidden in the shadows, was Eddie. Smiling. Story 3. They say storms make people feel lonely. For me, they just make people brave enough to knock on your door when they shouldn't. It was around 9:45 p.m. when the thunderstorm started hammering against my apartment windows. I live alone, and the wind makes the old frame rattle like someone's trying to break in. The lights flickered once, twice. My stomach was growling, and the thought of cooking in the dark made me laugh bitterly. So I picked up my phone and ordered a pizza. Large, double cheese from the small place down the street. They'd never let me down before. About 30 minutes later, I got the knock. Not the friendly two-tap most delivery people use. This one was slow, heavy, almost measured. When I opened the door, he was nothing like the delivery guys I knew. The man standing there was tall, dripping wet, like he'd just stepped out of a lake, not rain. His hair stuck to his forehead in strands. Rainwater ran down his face into a smile that didn't quite fit. "Pizza for Lisa," he said. His voice was calm, but there was a rasp in it, like he'd been shouting before he arrived. "Yes, that's me," I said, fumbling for my wallet. He handed me the box, but kept his hand there a second too long, still smiling. "You want me to bring it in, all the way to the kitchen?" The way he said "all the way" made my stomach tighten. "No, thanks. I got it," I said quickly. I gave him cash and stepped back, my polite way of saying goodbye. But he didn't move. He just stood there, rain trickling off his coat onto my doormat. I shut the door, firmly, slid the lock in place. I set the pizza on the counter, trying to shake it off. Maybe he was just being overly helpful. I ate a slice while lightning F lashed outside, illuminating the room for half seconds at a time. That uneasy feeling started to fade, until I went to the living room to grab my phone charger. That's when I froze. Across the wooden floor, leading away from the front door, were wet shoe prints. At first, my brain told me they might be from me, but I hadn't been outside. I hadn't stepped in water, and these weren't my small footprints. They were long, heavy, boot-shaped. The prints trailed right past my sofa, across the rug, and down the short hallway, toward my bedroom. I stared at them, my mind refusing to accept it, but the carpet near the hallway was still damp, still fresh. Maybe he did come in. Maybe when I was turning to grab cash, no, I would have seen him. I would have noticed. My hands felt clammy as I picked up the nearest thing I could use as a weapon, an old umbrella. The storm was roaring louder now, like the building itself was shaking. I stepped carefully down the hall. With each step, the wet prints seemed clearer, darker, as if they'd been pressed down harder the farther they went. When I reached my bedroom door, I noticed something worse. The final print stopped right at the threshold. But there were no prints leaving. The door was slightly open, I knew I'd shut it earlier to keep the heat in. "Hello?" I said, my voice trembling. My eyes scanned the shadowed corners, the space under the bed, the closet door. Nothing. I flicked on the light. The bulb buzzed and glowed sickly yellow. The room looked exactly as I'd left it. Empty. Except, on my pillow sat the pizza box, the same one I'd been eating from minutes earlier. I don't remember dropping the umbrella, but my fingers stung like I'd been holding them too tight. The box lid was slightly open. Steam, faint and curling, was still rising from it. With shaking hands, I lifted the lid slowly. Inside was not pizza. It was a folded piece of paper, damp at the edges. I took it out and smoothed it open. In a thin, scratchy handwriting, it read, "Told you I'd make it to the kitchen." I stumbled back, slamming the bedroom door and locking it from my side, which was useless, I knew, if he was still in the apartment. My phone was in the living room. No way to call for help unless I stepped into the hallway again. I tried to listen over the storm, my own breathing too loud in my ears. Then I heard it, not footsteps this time, but the slow squeak of wet boots on wood moving toward my bedroom door. They stopped right outside. The knock that came next was just like the first one, slow, deliberate, and then his voice, soft, almost amused, whispered through the crack, "You should see how it looks in here now." The power went out. I sat there in the dark, clutching the note, the sound of his boots pacing back and forth just inches from me. I don't remember how long it went on before it stopped, but when the lights flickered back to life, the wet prints were gone. I wish I could say I ran for help. I wish I could say I moved at all, but I didn't. I just sat on the floor until morning, staring at the door, waiting for another knock. It never came. And yet, tonight, it's storming again. And somewhere in the dark hallway, I can already hear the slow, heavy steps. Story 4. Have you ever accepted something for free and felt grateful, only to wish later you could take that moment back? I would trade anything to go back to the night the delivery man smiled at us from our cracked porch, holding that oversized box of pizza. It was one of those weeks that feels like a test, where money stretches so thin it almost disappears. I'd lost my job, Mom's hours got cut, and Dad spent his days trying not to cough up blood. Even my little sister, Priya, stopped asking for things. On Thursday night, the storm outside sounded hungry. So were we. When Mom found a crumpled $5 bill and some coins, we called our favorite pizza place. "Just the cheap cheese one," Mom said on the phone, embarrassed. Priya set the table with chipped plates, already excited. I tried not to look at Dad, who was shivering in his chair. The knock on the door, when it came, was strangely cheerful. I opened it to see a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, thin, with hair plastered to his head from the rain, but his smile was so wide and kind it almost made me trust him. "Pizza for the Patel family," he beamed. Yeah, sorry. We ordered the small cheap one." His grin widened. "You're the weekly winner. Random upgrade, jumbo special, totally free tonight." He handed me a box so big even Priya gasped. "Lucky day, huh?" He laughed, tucking a strand of wet hair behind his ear. I was too tired to argue. "Thank you," I said, but he was already stepping away, vanishing into the dark like he'd always belonged there. Inside, we cheered like something good had finally happened. The box felt hot in my hands. The cheese stretched in long golden strings. The crust smelled like real butter. "Extra cheese!" Priya squealed, biting in. Dad's eyes lit up. He hadn't smiled like that in weeks. We ate as if the slices might leave us if we took too long. But halfway through my second piece, my stomach started to twist. Dull at first, then shape-sharp. Within half an hour, Mom was in the bathroom, retching. Dad slumped from his chair, sweat pouring down his face, mouth open like he was trying to drag in more air. Priya clutched her side and whimpered, complaining her hands felt burny and cold at once. I tried not to panic. I called for help. By the time the ambulance came, the kitchen floor was littered with crumbs, the pizza box flipped open and askew, cheese gone rubbery in the cold. Hospital lights are too bright. They buzz and make the world blur. Priya lay on a gurney, face pale green, her lips cracked and blue. My mom had 3 tubes hooked into her arms. A doctor came in, grave-faced and trembling a little. You all have traces of substances not normally found in food. Rare toxins, ones we only see in laboratory cases. My heart fell somewhere deep inside me. How? I tried to ask, but the words tangled. He shook his head. These are manufactured poisons. You're lucky. You called when you did. Later, the police officer took down my words. He asked me to describe the delivery guy, even made me repeat the story 3 times. Tall, thin, wet hair, big smile. Said we were the weekly winner, jumbo special, free. His pen stalled. Are you sure you ordered from Tony's Pizza? I nodded, confused, growing angry. The next day, they visited our room again, their faces mask stiff. Tony's never sent anybody here last night, they said. I argued, showing them the crumpled menu, the pizza box, still on the bedside tray. But the box didn't look the same. The logo was different, lighter, almost faded as if it belonged to a different time. Mom swore it was from Tony's, but the officer just looked tired. No one saw the delivery man either, not on the street cameras, the neighbors' doorbell videos, nowhere. Priya whispered that she saw him standing at the corner when the ambulance left, but none of us believed her. At least, we pretended not to. A week went by. We got a little better. Dad joked that even death didn't want people as stubborn as us. But late at night, when the pain comes back sharp in my stomach, I close my eyes and remember the feel of that box in my hands. How hot it was, how heavy. How the delivery man smiled just a little too wide. Yesterday, a new flyer landed on our porch. Pizza specials, handwritten at the bottom in looping, cheerful script. You might be the next lucky winner. I burnt it before Mom could see. But every time the phone rings, I wait for that voice. Jumbo special, totally free tonight. Story 5. There are nights when you realize how alone you really are. And then there are nights where you wish you never were. I remember the night so clearly, not because it was special, but because it felt like the kind of nightmare you wake from, only to find it was real. My husband Ravi and I live in a remote farmhouse miles away from the nearest town. We love the quiet most days, but sometimes it's a little too quiet. On that particular evening, after a long day working outside, we decided to order a pizza. It felt like a treat, something simple to break the silence. The sky was already heavy with clouds, and the wind had picked up when I called the local pizza place. The woman on the phone was friendly and promised delivery within an hour, but the storm was rolling in fast. As time passed, the rain started pounding the roof like a wild animal. After 2 hours and no sign of the pizza, Ravi joked, maybe it got lost in the rain. But honestly, I was worried. Finally, just as the wind hit its loudest, we heard tires crunching on the gravel driveway. I glanced out the window through the heavy raindrops and saw the delivery driver, but something was wrong. He looked pale, almost sick, and his eyes were wild as he hurried up to the porch. Rainwater dripped from his soaked jacket onto the wood. In a barely audible voice, he said, "Don't leave the house tonight." Before we could ask why, he turned and disappeared into the dark, stormy night. Ravi and I stood frozen for a moment. Neither of us spoke. Then I noticed the pizza box in his hand, wet but intact. I rushed inside with it, shutting the door against the storm. We sat down, relieved. The box felt warm and smelled of fresh pizza. But as I lifted the lid, my smile froze. Instead of golden cheese and toppings, there were small, frozen field mice arranged in a perfect circle on top of the pizza. They were so tiny and lifeless, it was like someone had arranged toys on the crust. Not a single mouse moved. Even the pizza crust itself was warm, but the creatures were stone cold. Ravi leaned in, whispering, "What the hell is this?" We looked at each other, breaths shallow, suddenly very aware of the sounds outside. The wind, the rain, but something else too. A low rumbling noise, like the distant growl of engines, reached us through the heavy wooden walls. Suddenly, headlights shone through the dark windows. At first one car, then two more. And then three vehicles rolled slowly up the gravel driveway, their lights piercing the blackness. None of us moved. For hours, we stayed inside, lights off, watching the shadows dance where the headlights cut across the trees. The doorbell rang once, softly, and then stopped. We didn't dare open the door. The next morning, the storm had passed, but the circle of mice was still frozen on the pizza. When we called the pizza place back, no one had record of an order that night, and the driver? No one knew who he was. The farm feels different now, empty, waiting. Every time a car passes by on the empty road or a shadow sweeps across the porch, I wonder if they're coming back to finish what they started. Story 6. Have you ever had that nagging feeling something was watching you? Or worse, listening? That's how I felt the night we discovered the hidden secret inside our pizza box. It started like any other Friday night. My roommate Jake and I were settled in for our usual movie marathon. The lights were low, popcorn in bowls, and our favorite comedies queued up on the screen. Neither of us was hungry enough to cook, so we called our local pizza joint. You know the place. Cheap, fast, reliable. They promised the pizza would arrive in about 30 minutes. When the doorbell rang, Jake jumped up, grinning. We lived in a safe neighborhood, so we never worried much when people came over. The delivery guy was young, average-looking, nothing out of the ordinary. He handed over the box with a small nod and a "enjoy your night." No smile, no extra words. The pizza looked normal. Steaming hot, golden crust, pepperoni evenly spread. We dug in hungrily, laughing at the movie and each other's terrible jokes. By the time the credits rolled, the box was empty except for a few greasy crumbs. Jake tossed it into the recycling bin, but then paused. "Wait, there's something weird on the bottom," he said, pulling the box back out. I frowned and looked closer. There was a tiny hole in the cardboard, like someone had poked it with a pin. Curious, Jake carefully peeled back the layers. Inside the box, tucked beneath the wax paper lining, was a small gadget, an audio recorder, still blinking red with a light. "What the hell?" I whispered, feeling a chill twist down my spine. Jake pressed a button, and the device whirred to life. From the tiny speaker came the sound of laughter. Our laughter, from the last 3 nights we had ordered pizza. The voices were unmistakably ours. We heard every word, our jokes, our offhand comments, even low conversations we thought no one else could hear. It hit me like a punch. For weeks, someone had been quietly recording us, tucked away right inside the pizza box. I looked at Jake, who swallowed hard. "Do you think it's someone from the pizza place?" he asked. I shook my head but couldn't say anything else. The thought of a stranger listening to our private moments was terrifying. We checked the box carefully again. No obvious signs of tampering, no note, no name, just the recorder. We called the pizza place, pretending nothing was wrong. They acted confused, said no one else had reported something like it. The manager promised to investigate. But when Jake and I checked our next order, no recorder, no hole, just normal pizza. Still, neither of us felt safe. Every time the phone rang, every knock at the door made our hearts race. One night, Jake swore he heard the recorder's distinct beep from beneath the floorboards. The police were no help, telling us there was no proof of who could have placed the device or when. Now, we always inspect every pizza box carefully, every time. Sometimes, when I'm alone late at night, I swear I can hear faint laughter drifting from the kitchen, like a shadow trapped inside the cardboard. And no matter how many times we order, I never feel alone. someone is listening. For more stories like this, like, share, and subscribe Goofy Horror.